And we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Lacey Henderson. I'm the Director of Career Services and Professional Development here at the Jonsson School. And I'm super excited to have Bailey on with us from Texas Instruments. We're just going to jump right into it and get to know our guest. So let us introduce yourself and give us a little description of your background, Bailey.
Sure, Lacey. Thanks for having me today. So like you said, my name is Bailey Cordell. I am a packaging engineering manager here at Texas Instruments. I graduated from UTD in 2018 with a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering. I've been working for TI ever since I graduated in a myriad of roles. I started out in one of our rotation programs, which we'll talk about a little bit later in terms of
Awesome.
how we onboard at TI. They've changed it a little bit since then, since I'm a little bit older than I used to be. Um, but I started out in our quality organization, actually moved to packaging as part of that rotation program. And then I've been here ever since, and now I lead our wire bond QFN packaging team, which is just a specific type of packaging. If you're not familiar with packaging, essentially what it is, if you look on a PCB, if you look on a FCPGA, if you look on any kind of application that has semiconductors on it, you're going to see some black stuff on there and some silver stuff. That's the package. It's basically how the actual silicon or whatever substrate you're using interacts with our outside world, both in terms of interconnects within the package to the package itself on the board.
Got it. Interesting. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so what does your day-to-day look like as a packaging engineer manager at TI?
Sure. So TI is kind of interesting in that we do our own design and manufacturing. We're one of the only semiconductor firms that does both in-house manufacturing and in-house design. So I do a little bit of both. I would say about 50-50 of my day, 50% of it is around reviewing designs, helping our actual silicon design teams get to where they want to be thermally, electrically, mechanically in terms of what they want their package to look like in best order to fit our customer applications. The other 50%, I would say, is working on that manufacturing side. So majority of our manufacturing lines are either here in Dallas locally or overseas. I work a lot with our overseas teams and troubleshooting any manufacturing problems that come up from design. Or that come up as we're going through high volume ramp on some of these applications. So it's a good mix of both. It's a chicken and an egg
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what led you to this field, the semiconductor field?
Sure. So I guess I'll get to talk about my time at UTD now. So I actually started pre-med. I really enjoyed science my entire life. And I thought I was going to be in the sciences my entire life. And I guess I kind of am now.
Yeah.
Um, but I really enjoyed chemistry. And so I wanted to do something with chemistry and I thought I would do medicine. Unfortunately, I didn't want to go through all of the schooling for medicine. So I started looking around and thinking, okay, what can I do where I can get out of here in 4 years and have a job? And so that led me to engineering. Specifically, I went into electrical engineering because I liked the applied physics side of it. And I really found my niche when I started taking actually electronic devices, which is the first semiconductor course, first real electrical engineering course you're going to take about your sophomore, junior year. And we started talking about the chemistry of semiconductors. And that's when I was like, yeah, I definitely want to continue in on this field specifically. Also was able to take advantage of some of the great classes we offer at UTD as part of our lab work and also our partnership with TI, like semiconductor fabrication. And it just solidified that interest for me. So
Yeah, it just made sense. It's a skill set plus an interest, and those combined can really help you to excel. So great. And it's funny, we don't always find exactly what we want going into college. It is a little bit of a process of some
sure.
trial and error. So that's normal. Okay, so a lot of students obviously are looking to work for TI. What advice do you have for them?
Sure. So specifically looking at TI in terms of how we recruit, how we interview. So I have been part of the interviewing process before, so I can offer a little bit of a behind the scenes. is we're always looking for people that do their company research. And we'll talk about this, I think, a little bit later in terms of interview prep, but there's a very specific way I think you can interview prep for TI. So number one, TI.com is going to be your best friend. You want to look at, there's two things I want you to look at when you're doing company preparation, company research. Number one, what does the investor relations page look like? So what customers are we trying to target? What areas are we trying to grow in? A lot of people have this misconception that Texas Instruments is just calculators. I think most of the people at UTD understand it's not just calculators, it's also semiconductors. But within even semiconductors, there is like a full gradient in terms of what semiconductors mean. Like there's the high-end AI GPU chips all the way down to just simple LEDs, right? TI is more focused on the analog portion. So once you find that out, okay, what does analog semiconductor even mean? What areas is that? There's all stuff you can Google research. Great.
Right.
Specifically to TI, there's also a behavior we're looking for when we go into like the behavioral interview. And what we're really looking for is living our values. So TI and most companies will have this. They have like a kind of code of ethics or a code of behavior they want you to follow. TI, we publish these on TI.com. We have 5 values that are core to how we want our engineers and our recruiting pool to act like. So innovation, inclusivity, trustworthiness, results-oriented, and I'm forgetting the 5th one, competitive. You have to be competitive. You will be asked about all of those in your interview, how throughout you've been able to exhibit those, either through like projects you list or classes you list or internships or other jobs. Give me an example of how you were inclusive in this project, for instance, is like a behavioral question we'll ask. So just being prepared for that and having those answers ready. And I think that even applies to other companies other than TI. It just helps you on the behavioral portion of your interview understand more what they're looking for and how to structure your answers to their questions.
Yeah, so it's more than just technical skills. It really is part of the overall personality of someone and how they exhibit their behavior in and outside of the workforce. And so, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you described a little bit of what TI is usually looking for. Can you kind of give an overview of the hiring process and what students could expect when they're, let's say, applying for an internship or maybe the rotational internship that you mentioned?
Sure. So there's 2 different categories that we hire in for college grads. So there's going to be your internship. And then there's going to be, like I mentioned, a rotation project. I think they're calling it Career Accelerator Program now, CAP. So that's where you'll get your full-time position. So and they're very similar in terms of the processes that we use. So number one, always apply on TIA.com. Even if you come talk to us at a career booth, even if you come and email me cold after this, I'm going to tell you, we're all going to tell you the same thing. Please go apply on TIA.com because that's where we get the majority of our resume. Now, if you come talk to us at a career booth, you can obviously be advanced up the next level, which is like an in-person on-campus interview. Or if you're just applying cold to TI and we're interested, then we would move you to like a phone screen, which are pretty equivalent. And they're going to ask you very similarly. I think majority of our interviewing process is going to be about 50% technical, 50% behavioral. So like I mentioned, the behavioral is really digging into, okay, on your resume, you mentioned you were part of this project. Show me one of these values or talk about this, how you led this specifically to success, or what challenges did you have? Those kind of questions. On the technical, especially for internships, we try not to be too hard on y'all because a lot of times y'all are going to learn on the job, right? When I actually started at Texas Instruments, and maybe this is telling on myself, I didn't know what packaging was. I did not know the difference between a die and a wafer. And obviously I've been able to learn enough now that I'm a manager here. So it's definitely possible. But for electrical, it's making sure you have your fundamentals. So understanding your basic circuits. We'll always generally ask about voltage dividers. Just FYI, that's a little tip. I mainly actually interview mechanical engineers. And so what I'm looking for is not necessarily thermomechanics or anything. I'm really asking for how well you understand the foundation of the material. So I may ask, okay, if packaging is supposed to protect this chip from thermal events, what kind of characteristics are you looking for in materials, or how would you go about assessing the thermomechanical stress in this package, more so than, okay, tell me.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay. And then you also review a lot of resumes. So what do you look for? Kind of how does that resume process, how do students get to the interview by their resume?
Okay. So number one tip I would say is student should, and this is, this is what I do. So I have a very base resume that has literally everything I've ever done on there. You are
Yeah.
not going to send this out to anyone, okay? But it's just going to be your base resume. And then you're going to look at the actual job description. Every single job description will have generally skills required, what you would be doing and are expected in this role. And then you're going to cherry pick from your resume things that make sense for that. And you may want to look also at like, if you have specific things on there that don't quite fit, but maybe highlight a skill that would be somewhat applicable, rewriting it in that light. And honestly, like, so I don't recommend telling AI to write your resume for you, but it's very helpful as a tool for rewriting. You can say, hey, given this description with this project that I did, what do you think I should highlight out of here and how should I highlight it? That's a very good use of AI as a tool rather than like a crutch, I would say.
Yeah.
What I'm always looking for when I look at resumes is definitely leadership. So for instance, when you're looking at internship application, I'm not expecting you to have very much job experience. I'm expecting
Right.
you to have a lot of project experience, but how did you actually make a difference in this project?
Right.
Um, if I interviewed another student that was on that exact same project, how did you make that outcome different than that other student? Thinking about it that way can help distinguish you from the field, because honestly, when we are recruiting from schools, we're going to see a lot of the same projects over and over again.
Yeah.
So making yourself stand out in that way is also very helpful. And I find that's a helpful mindset to use when you're writing resumes.
Yeah. Definitely articulating your contributions to the project and aligning it with the company's values is going to be, you can stand out really quickly by that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the interviewing preparation. Um, anything that you would like to share on tips and what you think students should know going into an interview and how they should prepare for the interview?
Okay, so definitely you need to review your foundational knowledge for technical stuff. So like I said, if you're electrical reviewing, it depends honestly on what industry you're going into. So I think what's most helpful here and what I didn't understand coming into interviewing out of school was, how do you do company research? How do you actually figure out what you are interviewing for? So like, what does Texas Instruments do? What does Apple do? What does AMD do?
Yeah.
What I like to do is I like to search, like I said, Texas Instruments biggest customers, AMD biggest customers. Look at that top 5, and then try to understand what application that company is actually trying to target within there. Because for instance, if you pull up Texas Instruments, it's going to tell you Ford. Okay, where does a semiconductor go into like a car, right? You're going to have sensors, you're going to have battery management, you're going to have power, you're going to have signal integrity and signal display, basically light up display.
Yeah.
All of those are areas that TI likes to play in. So understanding just that part sets you
Yeah.
so far apart from any other
Huge.
candidate. And then if you're still not sure after you search the big customers, because right, I've been in the industry for almost 10 years now. So obviously I'm going to be able to pull out this stuff a little bit easier than a student would. Another thing is understanding what their market area is. So if you search, like I said, Texas Instruments, it's going to come up and it's going to say analog semiconductor market is like our biggest industry. If you search AMD, it's going to be AI chip, but also they have some GPUs like with Sony. So understanding what the market is. And so then what I would do is I would search analog semiconductor market growth areas or growth technologies. And that will give you something to talk about, especially when they ask, okay, do you have any questions for us? Because then you can say, okay, I saw for analog semiconductor markets that electric vehicles are a big growth area. What is TI doing to
move towards that?
Yeah, go and capture that market, or what's unique about y'all's approach? With AMD, I honestly now have questions about what are y'all doing with Sony PS5? That's so big.
That's so good, because you're looking at the competitors. You're looking at all of the different, areas of interest in the future. You want to know what they have done up until this point, but where are they going? And that's awesome. Okay, anything else about the interviewing that you wanted to talk about?
Not necessarily, but I did want to recommend that even if, so like there's this big conception with TI specifically that we only offer like full-time offers if you've had an internship at TI. I want to say that is not completely true. And I am actually an example of that. I did not intern at all at Texas Instruments. I was hired freshly as a new college grad into our rotation programs. So even if you're hearing that, and I will say our stats also do reflect that somewhat, you never know which door is going to be open to an opportunity. So always trying to put yourself out there in the best light and continue to apply.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think that is a common conception. So, okay, so now let's transition a little bit. We have the job, we're starting our internship. What are some success tips that you have for students to be successful from the internship, maybe in transitioning into a full-time role?
Sure. So I think one thing I've tried to highlight throughout like interviewing tips and resume tips is you really need to be curious. You need to exhibit curiosity. And so like, for instance, the market research, that's just being curious about where you're going, what you're doing. You need to also take that attitude into full-time work. Okay. So for internships, when we do internships at TI, we'll generally give you about 3 to 5 projects we want you to work on. And they may not have all the context you need at first to start. So being able to get that context by asking questions, or even if they do give you really good context, okay, how does this relate to the greater TI overall picture? How does this relate to other teams at TI? What are the other teams at TI? And this is for any company also, I feel like, because most internships are going to be project-based instead of full-time work, which is a little bit less project-based and more, I'm struggling with a word here. We still do projects, but it's going to be much more long-term, and you'll be a little bit better aligned with long-term goals of the company in that way. So that's a little bit easier to get context from, but just making sure you're exhibiting curiosity, you're asking questions, even though I know it's intimidating. You don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing, but I will assure you, we don't expect you to know exactly what you're doing. We expect you to be able to learn to know what you're doing. And the only way to learn is to ask questions and then take that to heart. So that leads to my second tip, which is exhibiting bravery. Feel brave enough to ask questions that you think put you in a bad spot, or to talk about your concerns, talk about your concerns, talk about any comments you have with your manager or with a trusted peer. And one of the ways you're going to meet a trusted peer or like a mentor is being brave enough to ask them, like, hey, I need help on this, or hey, can you mentor me through this project, right? If it's not assigned. So those are 2 big just behavioral tips I would give. The third is I would really focus on professional etiquette in the workplace. So learn how to write emails that are more, email is going to be a big thing. Meetings are going to be a big thing. So how you present yourself is incredibly important. Don't use slang. Always tread on the line of being more formal than informal until you understand more of the company personality. I would say TI, we're pretty informal, but you aren't expected to use slang. Does that make sense?
Yes, and yeah, you want to exhibit, professionalism. And I love that you talked about asking questions and being curious, even if it is just like, why are we doing this? What is the overall purpose? And just so I can understand. And I would think even in the professionalism of, I don't know if you would suggest that there's like a timing on how and when to ask questions. Maybe it be a pre-scheduled 30-minute sit down with someone rather than just walking in their office and starting a conversation. So, I mean, there's probably would you say that there's some cultural norms there?
Yeah, and I think it's also specific to the company. And so it's something you should probably talk to with whoever your
like direct
contact person is. Yeah, or your direct mentor is. You can ask, like, I've had people ask, okay, like, how do we dress in the office? Like, what is the office dress code? And also, like, okay, if I do have all these questions and concerns about my projects, like, who do I go talk to? How do I go do that? Those are perfectly appropriate to ask your contact person, and they can help guide you on that. If you're not sure, then you should probably go to your direct manager and, like you said, probably schedule like maybe 10 or 15 minutes on the calendar and just say, hey, I want to get just like a company culture breakdown on policies.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about your work-life balance.
Okay, I don't know if you can see, but I have pictures of my daughter here. So I do have a family outside of work. I am a working mom. I also obviously am a manager. So I manage a team of 4 people. That's 4 different schedules, 4 different full workloads of projects, and staying on top of all of that while also managing my family is obviously something that weighs heavily on my mind. I would say work-life balance. So you will, after about a year of being at your company is generally when I see this, you'll be able to better prioritize, okay, this is like absolutely important. I cannot miss this at work versus this one, I may be able to have someone cover for me, like my manager or a coworker, and we'll just trade off favors, something like that.
Yeah.
That's always helpful. I think also just managing your time appropriately is very important, and how you do that is going to be on prioritization. If you're struggling with that, reaching out to your manager or like a trusted peer on, okay, this is everything I have to get done. I'm not sure where I should start. How can I start, or what is important organizationally for us to go and get done? That is such an important skill, and that will help you better manage your time and be able to better balance it out between work and life, right? If you don't know what you're supposed to be doing at work, then you're not going to have any time to go have a life.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do when I'm super busy is if my manager, or even if it's not my direct manager, but someone else is asking me to do a project or something, it's like, okay, when would you like this to get done so I can kind of prioritize, when I can do it. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, you are somewhat of a recent grad, right? So tell us how you overcame any barriers and how did you advocate for yourself in this tech industry?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, I started in a rotation program. CAP is very similar career accelerator program, in that you'll be working probably a project outside of where you've been assigned to. So, for instance, if you were a packaging engineer, you may go work, and you worked for me. You may go work for a different packaging technology platform. You may go work for one of our emerging R&D teams on just a project. But you have to be able to advocate if you have a specific interest where you want to go. So I go back to the rotation program. I was hired into our quality rotation program, but I knew after working in quality for about a year and a half that I had a real interest in packaging because of the things I was working on in the quality organization. We were always breaking our packages, and I was like, I don't understand why this is happening. Can someone please explain this to me? And it goes back to being just like curious. I was very curious about what we were doing and how we could fix it and how we could better design it so it wouldn't affect our customers, for instance. And so I had to go and advocate for myself and say, no, I think this is really important for my career, regardless on if I come back to quality or if I stay in packaging, because I keep seeing this. I think it's interesting. I want to go learn more, and I want to become a better engineer because of it.
Right.
And so, because I was just supposed to rotate within quality, but I said, no.
Yeah. I want to look outside. And I love that it kind of started from a problem. You saw a problem, you wanted to address it, you created opportunity for yourself, really, without anyone coming to you. And I love that TI supported you in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say TI is a very supportive culture, not just of what you want to do from a career growth standpoint, but also helping you grow your career if you're not sure. Like we talked about company culture, I feel like we have a really strong company culture of mentorship in that you can go and ask anybody any question and they're not going to turn you away. They're going to work with you as if they were a stakeholder in your project. So it's a really good company for technical growth and career development in that way.
That's awesome. Okay, we're wrapping up. Any other final words of advice for your audience? Anything that we didn't talk about that you kind of want to mention before we hop off?
No, I would just say continue to be curious, continue to be brave enough to be curious, and have a good holiday break. I guess y'all are going on holiday break soon, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy lady and you have a lot going for you, and I appreciate you spending time with us and talking to other students about these success tips that you had to offer. So we appreciate it, and we will see you later.